Yes, my name is Gena Thomas.
All right, and how did you come to care for Julia?
Well, my husband and I have been fostering since October of 2017, and when Julia came into care, they were looking for foster parents who spoke Spanish, and our social workers knew that we had lived in Mexico for a while, so they contacted us. There was a lot of things that were required in order to make that happen. The biggest process was trying to get the consulate travel papers in order for her to return, because when she did come across, she came across undocumented, so she didn't have any kind of passport or any kind of travel documents to be able to return home. So that was the biggest hurdle in trying to get her reunified.
When she was reunified, what did that moment feel like?
Oh wow, it was every emotion you could possibly feel in one moment. Felt just relief and pure joy. So thankful that they finally got to be back together. Felt so much joy for them, sadness for us because she was leaving our home, but we were so happy she was finally where she was supposed to be.
What do you know about Guadalupe's story and how she came to be separated from Julia?
She was separated prior to actually entering the United States because smugglers had basically used her to get more money out of the family. So they said if the stepdad goes ahead and crosses over, gets a good job, then he can send money to release Guadalupe. So she was held against her will with the intention of getting more money out of her.
And what happened to the stepdad?
The stepdad and Julia crossed into the United States, and the only thing that we really know is that after 2 days he was deported. We don't have any documentation, or at least I never got any documentation on why that happened, and Guadalupe doesn't know why it happened either. It sounds like the trauma has affected him so much he hasn't reached out to contact Lupe. She's tried to reach him a couple of times but hasn't been successful.
And in this time, what came of Julia?
So Julia was then sent into the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and they place children usually within 30 days into a sponsorship family. The phrase that they use is the least restrictive situation that they can be placed into. So in her particular situation, it was with relatives of her stepdad. And she was then neglected in that home, found wandering the streets, and was then put into DHHS custody. Which
leads to foster care.
Exactly.
What kind of effect did all of this have on Julia?
I'm not sure I can even explain in words how much this has affected her. I think this type of trauma is a lifetime effect. Not only was she traumatized in that her mom was taken from her, then she was traumatized in that the other adult that was responsible for her was then also taken from her. Then on top of that, she went to live with a family who was supposed to take care of her and didn't take care of her. And then by the time she came into our home, she tried to run away several times because it didn't seem like adults were taking care of her very well. So it's a lot of trauma.
How do you feel after spending 4 months with Julia, seeing her depart and be with her family?
I think that the heaviest that I feel in all of this is knowing that it had happened to several other families. There are about 3,000 families, it sounds like, where children were being separated from their parents. And that just seems beyond unbelievable, beyond it. I mean, unbelievable is something that is crazy. Beyond unbelievable is like, I can't even conceive how we're doing this to people. And then trying to think through, I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, trying to think through what would that have been like to not know where your child is placed. It's just so sad.
As a foster parent and one intertwined in the or I guess fallout of the Trump administration's family separation policy, someone who has to care for the children of immigrants as their cases are adjudicated. How do you view yourself and your family's role at this moment in time?
I think that foster parents in this situation play a large role in being advocates to get children back to the families that they belong to. It wasn't something that I had planned on doing, but as foster parents, we are entrusted with taking care of children and really trying hard to, typically we don't get to say what we think or what we're hoping to accomplish, but the whole point of foster care is for reunification. And being able to be an advocate for that, especially in such a critical time, has been really eye-opening, and I really hope that others come forward with similar stories.
What do you want people to know about the family separation policy and foster families like yours?
The policy itself, I think most people know what it was, and now obviously it's been returned, or what, I don't know what the word is, but there's still families that are separated, and I think that people need to recognize that. The Trump administration was given a deadline, and it has not met the expectations of that deadline to return all these families together. And as foster parents, especially if there are some who do speak Spanish and who can kind of communicate and be on the forefront of communication, as I was with the consulate, it's so important at this time to make sure that what our country did wrong, we rewrite those wrongs to the best of our ability, and recognize that we have caused so much trauma, unnecessary trauma, in the lives of these children and these families, and it's just, we have got to do everything that we can to make sure that we rewrite this.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
If there is anyone in this situation, get in contact with a consulate, get travel papers. Beyond adjudication, that's the next step, and I think that was something that we didn't realize right away. So for people who are trying to figure out what to do next, the next step is work with a consulate and get them back to their home country.
Gena, thank you.
Thank you.